Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the award-winning weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, but before we get into that, I gotta give a massive, humble thank you, station, and a pop boom for everybody's support during this time. We, this weekend, just took home 5 CBC awards. That's right, we have won Best Collaboration for the Monthly Comic Book Review. The latest episode was last Thursday, definitely check that out. We have won Best Comic Book Review for the second year in a row. In fact, they've only given that award out twice, and they've only given it out to us. So that's super awesome. We won Best Ongoing Series for the weekly comic book review, and yes, we won Best Hair and Best Beard. In fact, I really want a good design, so Manny, if you're watching, I would love a great design that said, I survived the best hair controversy of 2023. Also, we won the Big Daddy, we won Channel of the Year. So give yourselves a pat on the back, PCP Army. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for turning out in droves and making it heard and shouting from the mountaintops. We want positivity. We want insightfulness. We want entertainment. And whether or not I bring that to you every week on the weekly comic book review or not, you always bring it to me, and that's part of the tenets of the PCP life. So thank you so much. Comics YouTube, we have a mandate now. The mandate is, let's talk about what we love. This is a wonderful community. Everybody who was nominated, everybody who won, everybody who was a finalist is deserving of that recognition and the attention. Comic books is a small community, but it's one of the best communities, and it is the best community I've ever been a part of. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Station, PCP Army for life. All right, so we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, Transformers #3 from Image Comics, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork by Daniel Warren Johnson, coloring by Mike Spicer, lettering by Russ Wooten. Absolutely such a fantastic frickin' book. It gets better and better issue to issue. Now, I think that Transformers #1 by Daniel Warren Johnson was a watershed moment for modern comics. I wouldn't say that it quite hit the success of, let's say, an X-Men #1, but actually, I would say it's hit that success. I'm talking about the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont X-Men #1 from, 1991? And yeah, this book didn't sell 7 million copies, but for what it sold, compared to what comic books typically sell, it's actually a pretty big deal, and it's brought in, at least in my shop, and at least here on this channel, it's brought in a lot of people who know Transformers, used to read comics, maybe never read comics, but love Transformers, are disappointed by the movies. They want something exciting, they want something new, they want something fresh, even if it's in the midst of a retelling of a story that's very familiar, but if it's done in a fresh and dynamic and supercharged way, like Daniel Warren Johnson always delivers, this is a big deal. And I'm telling you what, I've already read Duke #1, and I know what happens in Transformers #4. It's only going to reach more levels of excitement. This is the best time right now. Go and buy Transformers #1, 2, and 3. Give it to people for Christmas. It's the holiday season. I know you have a lapsed comic book fan in your life. I know you have a lapsed pop culture fiend in your life. I know you have a lapsed Transformer nut in your life. This is the perfect opportunity right now, as we speak, to bring people back into this industry, to show them something exciting, to show them something dynamic, to show them something made with love and innovation and care, and that is where we are living right now, and it is everybody's mission who's reading comic books today to get more people into comics, because the more people that are into comics, the more money in that industry, the better creativity, the better product, the better the entire community is going to be. Transformers is one of those books. And issue number 3 is a big reason why. Daniel Warren Johnson is really ironing out any little inconsistencies in his artwork. It is super fluid, but at the same time very rigid and structured, but very loose, and it's got that buoyant sense of energy that DWJ is known to bring. This is one of my favorite books of the year. I know it's only been 3 issues so far, but I'll tell you something about this book. And it's actually been a long time since this has happened, where every single month I am oozing with anticipation and oozing with expectation for the next issue of Transformers. Characters I know, characters I love, a creator who I know, a creator who I love, and who also loves this industry and loves the work and is always striving to do his absolute best in a positive, insightful, and entertaining way. So just like this has been the year of PCP, it's also the year of DWJ and Transformers and Robert Kirkman and Skybound. This stuff is awesome. Big, tragic moments. Big moments that make you just jaw drop. Excellent fighting, wrestling moves by Transformers on other Transformers that don't feel clunky or silly or anything like that. This book is what those movies wished they could be a fraction of. Transformers absolutely slaps and rolls out. Yeah. Anyway, Transformers really good. Next up, though, from Image Comics, this is a runner-up for the pick of the week. It's Bloodrik, maybe Bloodrik. I think Bloodrik sounds better than Bloodrik, so I'm going to go with Bloodrik, right? Bloodrik is frickin' awesome. So this is written and illustrated by Andrew Kroenke. This is amazing. I got an early look at this last month when it was hitting FOC, and it is glorious. The artwork immediately blew me away. I loved it. The composition, the panel design, the storytelling of the book, the use of the line, the use of color, the use of pace, the use of atmosphere, and the use of tone. Bloodrik is about a barbarian type character. This entire first issue is pretty much him running around, hungry, looking for food, and he's in this like frozen, barren wasteland in which there is nothing out there for him to feed on. And it is that story. It is very simple, but at the same time, it's told, or I should at least say, shown in a very complex, more than competent, and innovative, and damn right fascinating way. The artwork is gritty, it's textured, it's some of my favorite things I love about artwork, but at the same time, it has a very sleek composition. It's got amazing panel design. It's kind of like Andrew McLean, a little bit like Mike Mignola, but it's got that grit and texture of like a Klaus Janson. It works for me. It's awesome. The story, there's not really much to the actual story, but the story is a vehicle for this artwork to come across. It's about telling the story visually, much more so than it is about the cool idea behind the story. But I'll tell you what, a barbarian who's constantly running around looking for food, that's awesome to me. Bloodrik, #1, y'all. Do not miss out on this book. It is awesome. Then we got Our Bones Dust, #1 from Image Comics. This is a new one from Ben Stenbeck. Now, Ben Stenbeck was an artist over at the Mignola universe for a long time, right? He did Baltimore, right? That was a lot of work of his in the Mignolaverse was Baltimore, which I absolutely love. And I feel like Baltimore was not as good when he stopped doing the artwork for it. But he came in, he did some Hellboy stuff, and it was interesting. I've always loved his work. Now he's on his own, doing his own thing, and it's still very much in the vein of his Mignolaverse work. However, it is also a little bit different. It's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi type approach to a story. It's about this young person running around trying to steal water. Water, of course, in a post-apocalyptic scenario here on Earth is a very hot commodity. They're running around, they're stealing water. It sets this other gang after them, and it just kind of, it has a nice sense of of story, has a nice sense of kind of scale and scope, and a little bit of a mystery. You don't quite get everything delivered, but you do get very clean artwork. You do get a really great sense of flow and storytelling and pacing in this issue, and I am a huge fan of Ben Stenbeck, so I am definitely, or Steinbeck, whatever. It's not Steinbeck, it's Stenbeck. Stenbeck. Anyway, Ben does a great job. I'm excited for this. I want to see more of it. And of course, we got a variant cover by Mike Mignola, and I'm going to give the Mignola cover of the week. Why? Because I am a nut for Mike Mignola. So there you go. All right, we also have Creepshow, a holiday special for 2023. It's all right. Honestly, it's one of the weaker issues of Creepshow. Each issue of Creepshow is 2 short stories. This one has a story by Daniel Kraus and Jonathan Hayshak and James Asmuth and Ledzia Kandanichi, and it's alright. The first one's probably my favorite. It's decent, but the second one didn't really do much for me, but the first one was just kind of okay. So if you're a nut for this Creepshow Tales from the Crypt horror anthology type thing and you love a Christmas horror, maybe check this one out, but maybe there's another one you need to check out we'll be talking about later. So for me, the Creepshow Holiday Special was just alright. Then we got the Sacrificers here with issue number 5, and this is a turning point for this story. You read the story, it's written by Rick Remender, it's excellently written. It is illustrated by Max Fiamara, which the artwork is just freaking glorious in this book. The coloring is amazing. Who is the colorist? The colorist is Dave McCaig, Russ Wooten on the lettering. It's a top-notch book. It's a top-notch book. It's doing a fantastic job, but one thing, and it's super gnarly, by the way, like, I'm not going to show too much of that page because it's super gnarly and it's awesome. This book is about a world ruled by these gods, quote-unquote, that feed off of this elixir made from the sacrifices of the children of the community. All right, that's a decent setup. We got this set up. It reached its emotional culmination in the last issue. Where do we go from here? Well, we actually elaborate a little bit more about where this elixir comes from, what exactly it is, what exactly it does, and the power struggle of those in power who feed on this elixir, and maybe even a little bit more to that I don't want to spoil. That's what I loved about this chapter in particular, was we already had a great solid story. You could have really wrapped this up in 6 issues and it would have been satisfying, it would have been emotional, but it would have been a little cliche. It would have been a little bit like Hunger Games, a typical story that we've already seen. However, what Rick Remender does here with the story is he takes our expectation and he goes, oh, you thought we were going here? We're actually going this way. And I really freaking like that. The Sacrificers is keeping it fresh, it's keeping it exciting, and it's keeping it intriguing. And that's some amazing artwork. Petrol Head issue number 2 is here. Issue number 1 was the pick of the week on a light week, but it was the pick of the week because of the beautiful coloring and the excellent dynamic momentum and action sequences in the story. The second issue has all of that, but it's not quite as a fulfilling of an experience as the first issue. It's good, it's solid, but it didn't wow me or blow me away like the first one did necessarily. It's building up some more of these characters, some more of these interactions between these characters, diving deeper into the conflict that's actually going to happen. This is a world in which robots race crazy-ass cars and crazy-ass pod race, wacky races. It's very much like Wacky Races. If y'all remember that shit, what was that? Hanna-Barbera. Wacky Races was one of my favorite cartoons, watching reruns of it when I was a kid. It reminds me of Wacky Races, but this issue kind of gets away from that just a little bit to build up these human characters and to set up this contentious relationship with their robotic savior, because these races have been banned and outlawed, but there are still some outlaw robots out there who like to haul ass and tear ass across the streets of this world, right? So it's interesting, it's cool, it's a necessary step, it's a necessary chapter, but I want this book to go more into that Wacky Races territory. Art is solid, I just want the story to be a little bit more having fun with itself, if that makes sense. But it was pretty solid. Then we got Blood Commandment, issue number 2. Szymon Kudranski doing it all on his own for the most part, writing, illustrating, all of that stuff. I absolutely love this book. This is vampire, supernatural horror fiction done right. And it's done right because it's done by someone who gives a shit. It's done by someone who gives a shit not just about comics, but also not just gives a shit about horror and horror fiction and the supernatural kind of gothic vampire-y type things. It's got elements and shades, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, of the Coen brothers, especially in particular No Country for Old Men, which also brings me into some like Cormac McCarthy influences here. It's there. It's not the most prevalent thing because it's a very dark, noir, kind of like horror comic, not only done by someone who gives a shit about comics, not only done by someone who gives a shit about horror fiction, but done by someone who gives a shit about themselves. And that's what I love about what Kudranski's been doing. He will take the gig for a paycheck and do a great job, but he's really betting on himself right now between this and something epic and other things in the work. What does he call it? One Man Army? Something like that. One Man Art. One Man Art. I am all here for it because it's great to care about comics. It's great to care about a genre of fiction that I absolutely adore. But what I really love about Kudranski's work of this year in particular is his love and accept his love for himself, right? And the chance that he's taking doing his own thing, building his own thing, but still also being a workman in this industry. I cannot give higher props to someone. One of my favorite creators of 2023, Kudranski. Szymon Kudranski. And homie, let me know if I'm saying your name wrong. Szymon Kudranski. I just want to know. Then we got Midlife or How to Hero at 50, issue number 3. This is written by Brian Buccellato, Stefano Simone on the artwork, Hassan Otsman El-Hal on the lettering. This is a great book. Issue number 1 blew me away, kind of made the pick of the week that week. Second issue was pretty solid. The third issue keeps that momentum going, and I'm really digging this book. What I love about this book is the dialogue. What I love about this book is the personalities of the characters involved. They're all very fleshed out, very realized, very real and authentic. And what the book is about this dude who was a super nerd with his friends back in the day. There's a lot of nostalgic kind of references when they flash back to their previous conversations and stuff like that. But then it's set mostly in the modern day where this dude who works for the fire department, but he's scared of fire. He's never been the action firefighter hero like his dad was, who was apparently the star of a frickin' Backdraft or something. You know what I'm saying? But he finds out through a series of circumstances that he's invulnerable to fire and he can kind of control fire, and him and his friends decide, well, we got to become a superhero for that, right? So he's able to live up to the dream and ideal of his firefighter hero father, but at the same time there's these government factions that are like looking out for him and coming after him, and it's really exciting. But it's the characters that sell this. The book has got a very dynamic flow of artwork, but it is that grounded, character-driven storytelling that really makes this soar, or should I say, catch fire. That was you know, I just won Best Comic Review, Best Ongoing Series for this one, so I guess I can get away with that for one more week. But I really we gotta cut that out. Will you make a note? We gotta cut that out. King Spawn is here with issue number 28. This is a whole issue of Spawn lugging a giant carcass across the wastelands of hell, and there's a reason for it. And so it's a setup, a culmination, and an ending that I really liked. It is very much reminding me of the Hellboy story, The Corpse. I almost just wish it would have leaned more into that, and this carcass that Spawn is dragging through hell would converse with him a little bit more. It actually would have made it a little bit more compelling than just the narration. Todd McFarlane is the sole writer here now. Sean Lewis is out. I think that the book has been hurt a little bit because of that. It's still solid. It's still good. Still got amazing artwork by Javier Fernandez. But Sean was bringing an excitement and professionalism to the script that I think has been lacking over the last few issues. Let's jump over to Marvel. We got a new Thunderbolts book, issue number 1. It's okay. There's a new Thunderbolts movie coming out. It's going to have Winter Soldier in it. It's going to have Red Guardian in it. It's going to have White Widow in it. So, of course, we got to have a new Thunderbolts book that's going to be involving all of these characters that are possibly a part of this movie, including the Contessa, Val. Like, I like the book. It was all right. It was decent enough, but it doesn't ever... No Thunderbolts book since the original Thunderbolts by Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley and company, eventually Pat Jerker. No Thunderbolts book has ever really captured what Thunderbolts is and what it's supposed to be. This one is just trying to line up the property for the upcoming movie. They are taking characters that in the MCU make sense to be in Thunderbolts, that in the MCU have these dynamics and these conflicts and these relationships together, but in the comic book, they're having to like go out of their way to try to force it all to fit together, and it just doesn't quite fully work for me. And at the same time, it's also kind of a follow-up to Kelly and Lansing's Captain America run, which didn't really do much for me. Never really saw it come to its full culmination. And this is kind of like dealing with the aftermath of that. So, for the most part, if you're jumping in saying like, yo, Thunderbolts movie, I'm excited, I want to see what's coming up, let's read this, like, I don't think it's going to do much for you. Go back and read the Kurt Busiek stuff. That's what I would recommend. But then you got the Sentry issue number 1. Which makes this book look like gold. This book, I don't like doing this. This book sucked. This book sucked. It wasn't good. All right, so it's the Sentry, but the Sentry's not in it. What is happening is that since the apparent demise of the Sentry in King of Black, which was like 2 frickin' years ago, but whatever, let's finally get back to that and bring that back. It seems like the power of the Sentry is traveling across the world and entering into random people or something like that. Why is this book called The Sentry? That's my biggest problem with this book. This book is not about the Sentry. It's not about the character of Bob Reynolds. He's not even in here, and I could even forgive that, but it's not about the Sentry. This book is about the mystery of why are the Sentry powers going into random people. This is proof that Marvel is just setting up once again for the upcoming movie. Now we know that Sentry's in the Thunderbolts movie, so we got a Thunderbolts book, we got a Sentry book out, but it doesn't involve the Sentry at all. It's about his power. This is Marvel proving that they don't have the balls to do a Jessica Jones book or a Heroes for Hire book, because that's what this is. It involves more of the characters of Misty Knight, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage than it does anything involving the Sentry. The Sentry is just the mystery. As a Sentry book, it does not work. And in particular, Marvel, you got a Thunderbolts movie coming up that's going to involve the Sentry. You got a new Sentry book. I get it. That makes sense. Have the book be about the Sentry. So maybe people that weren't there 20 years ago when Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee were introducing the idea of the Sentry through Marvel Knights to the comic book audience, there are plenty of people that weren't there because barely anybody read comics back then, right? Have a book about the Sentry, or at least have the Sentry in print. Marvel, I don't understand. Y'all try to have this synergy with the movies and stuff, but it just never really quite works or pans out. Amazing Spider-Man issue number 39. I've been holding on to Amazing Spider-Man, waiting for this gang war story to hopefully be some level of excitement. It seems like the bits that I like the most in the inconsistent Zeb Wells, Ramita Jr. and company Spider-Man run have been the stuff focused on Tombstone, the stuff focused on building up to this gang war, and now that the gang war is erupted, it's just okay. I like the John Romita Jr. artwork, but it ain't like it was back in the day, and I'm talking about the 80s and the 90s, or even some of his stuff in the 2000s. It's just not quite there. It's a little bit rushed, at times a little bit clunky. There's something going on with the coloring there that I don't like, but that has been ironed out. It's not the art that I don't like in this book, but it's just the inconsistency of it, and it feels like this book has an identity crisis and can't figure out if it wants to be this or if it wants to be that. Do you want to be a ground level, like street level crime Spider-Man 80s influence book, or do you want to be a stupid, silly, ridiculous, buoyant, and fun Spider-Man book? And many Spider-Man runs have been able to do both, but usually it's one or the other, and this one's trying to tread that line too much, and it's just not working for me. And I tell you what, unless Gang War, like, blows my world apart, these are going to be the last issues of Spider-Man I read until we get some new creative direction in on that title. Fantastic Four is here with issue number 14, finally reaching the point where we are bringing to fruition the promised conclusion of the whole story about why everybody hates the Fantastic Four. Where's the Baxter Building? Where are the kids? Are they coming back? The issue itself is just kind of okay. I don't like the bright coloring. The artwork is okay. It's just decent. It's just mid. It's just kind of meh. And to me, I want the Fantastic Four to be fantastic. Now, this is never going to be the best-selling comic ever again. I think the last time this was a best-selling comic was when Jim Lee was on it. And I don't think you're pulling Jim Lee back into this title. So Fantastic Four, it's been all right. It's been decent. It's been serviceable. But I've seen it done way better. And this is my favorite comic book of all time is Fantastic Four. And right now, I'm just getting it out of obligation because I have a complete run from like 100 to today complete, and I got to continue it. So the book's just not been doing much for me, and I'm ready for some new creative direction on that book. Then we got Daredevil issue number 4. I'm liking what Saladin Ahmed is doing in the pages of Daredevil. I am upset, or I should say slightly disappointed, that you can't keep one single artist on this book for 4 issues. Hell, they couldn't keep one single artist on this book consistently for 3 issues. Aaron Cutter is doing a really great job with this book, but in the 3rd issue, he was bouncing back and forth between another book, and it was just such a jarring difference in styles, it really threw me out of the story. This one, the story's fine. A bunch of people in Matt Murdock's life are possessed by the devil. He's got this new life as a priest, gifted by God, I guess, after he died at the end of the Chip Zdarsky run. That's a little weird. But it's decent and it's fine. And the guest artist on this book is actually pretty good. It's Herman Peralta, which is great. But can we get some consistency in artwork at Marvel? I do not understand how Marvel, a comic book with some of the highest resources out of any publisher, is so lean on their creators right now. Like, it feels like we get half a comic in every comic book from Marvel. I look through them, and for the most part, they don't look exciting. There are elements of this Daredevil issue I really liked, but one thing that really stuck out to me about Marvel this week, it's not exciting. It doesn't have the sense of, like, big epicness that those movies gave us, it doesn't have that scale. It doesn't have that scope. It doesn't have that vibe and that feel. Something is missing at Marvel. And what's missing at Marvel is this: solid, consistent creators. Come on, Marvel. How hard is it to just get a little bit ahead of the game? Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples can do it. They may have to take a 2-year break at times. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, how is Marvel, Vault, Mad Cave, Black Box, Dynamite, how are they more consistent than Marvel? Come on, Marvel. Come on, House of Ideas. Step up. If you need to chat with someone about some ideas, me and the PCP Army, we got some. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have Batman Santa Claus Silent Night, issue number 1. Now, this is the first issue of a weekly miniseries from DC for Christmas time, for the holiday season. And it's Batman, who has a previous partnership with Santa Claus, teaming up yet again to defend Gotham against these, like, Nordic vampires. This was actually a really fun book. I liked the artwork. I liked the vibe of it. Damien's disbelief in the fact that Santa Claus is real compared to everything else that he's seen. I liked it. Now, it's not the best comic book in the world, and it's not like super groundbreaking or anything like that. But for what it's trying to do, which is to deliver a holiday-centric Batman tale that anybody can get into, I'm down for it. You know, it's the Christmas season, it's the holiday season. I love watching holiday movies. I love watching Gremlins. I love watching Black Christmas. I love watching Christmas Evil. We just talked about that on PCP Movie Night for Holiday Horror Fest. I love talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night. We're going to be talking about that Monday night, this upcoming Monday night, on PCP Movie Night for Holiday Horror Fest. So I really like it when the fictions that I love kind of give me something for the holidays, whether it's Charlie Brown, horror films, or Batman comics. This is written by Jeff Parker. He's doing a great job here. We'll be talking about him just a little bit as well, and we are right now working with getting Jeff onto the channel to have a chat. So let me know if you'd like to see that happen. Then we got Titans Beast World Tour, Metropolis, issue number 1. So Titans Beast World, which is DC's current little event that's going on right now, which I like. I've read the first 3 issues of it, and I am pleased. It is very Titan-centric, but it does have ramifications for the larger DC universe. Tie-ins, though. Let's talk about it. This is not essential to your understanding of DC Titans Beast World or anything like that. What it is something happened. Garth's powers, Beast Boy's powers, got manipulated, and everybody on Earth now, or a lot of people on Earth, are now being infected by Beast Boy's powers, becoming random animals and going crazy. So that's going on in the main title. This is everything else. This is Metropolis World Tour, so it's like 3 or 4 stories, I can't really remember. One main story and a few backups about this outbreak happening in Metropolis. One thing that structurally does bother me about this is that some of these stories say they take place after Beast World Part 2. Some say they take place after Beast World Part 3. And I'm like, yo, we've only had one. You telling me, DC, that scheduling is still an issue? I guess so, but it's all right. It's decent. The main story is a Dreamer, Jonathan Kent story that I actually liked. The other 2 stories were just kind of okay. There's a Dan Jurgens one with Bibbo. So that was kind of cool and like a nice little throwback, but it was all right, but in no way is it essential to your understanding of Beast World. Neither is Titans Beast World, Waller Rising. But I did like this a little bit better. It's written by Chuck Brown, and it's a team of heroes trying to go up against Amanda Waller, including Black Mana's involved in there as well, and I like the spotlight on many of the characters in this story. I enjoyed the story. It is kind of setting up more of the behind the scenes, what's going on with Amanda Waller, her conflict now with Dr. Hate, the new character that was introduced at the end of Night Terrors and is finally making his first play here in the pages of Titans Beast World. But this is mostly focused in on Waller, what she's doing, and I guarantee you this. DC's got a plan. Part of that plan heavily involves Amanda Waller, and this is one of those stories kind of building up into it, but I liked it, but it is in no way essential to your understanding of Beast World, but it was pretty good. Batman 140 is here, continuing this new arc, Mind Bomb, in which the Zur-En-Ars, Batman has been infected with the multiverse of Zur-En-Ars, and now we got the Joker trying to make his play. I loved this book. Jorge Jimenez does a great job with the artwork. It's got a great sense of energy to it. It's utilizing different styles for the different Batman Zur-En-Ars that are inside of Bruce. But what it also does is it takes everything that Chip Zdarsky's been doing and starts making it feel like it's really all connected, like there's all been a purpose to it. And right now, I'm enjoying Batman by Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez in particular. There's a backup story with Vandal Savage that sets up a lot of what's to come. That was interesting, but I'm liking Mind Bomb a lot right now. Then we got Poison Ivy, issue number 17. G. Willow Wilson has turned Poison Ivy into one of the most consistent DC books out there right now. We have a special artist on this book. It's what's her name? It's Luana Vecchio, I believe, who just recently blew me away this year with the book Lovesick. But she comes in as the artist on this book, and I really like it. I really like the gnarly, horrific aspects of this book. When it first started, I thought they were trying to tread this fine line between Poison Ivy as an anti-hero and Poison Ivy as a villain, and they have actually done the unthinkable to me and have tried to do both and actually excelled at it. I love it. It's all connected with one thread that's been building up throughout the entire series, but each issue has a focus to it that I absolutely love. I really get a good sense of where this book is going now, and I'm loving it. Poison Ivy is one of the best at DC. So is Shazam. Shazam number 6, Dan Mora on the artwork. It is just big, bombastic, fun, old school superhero action. The story by Mark Waid is connected to the more modernization of the concepts, the more modernizing of the more modern concepts attached to Shazam, but also very classic and old school type feeling. It's got a great sense of superhero action about it, a great mystery, and this is the conclusion of the first arc, and it works incredibly well. I love this book. Another book I love right now, I'm loving DC, y'all. I'm loving DC. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue number 4. Nice, clean artwork, a nice, light, fun story that's dealing with characterization, but not taking itself too seriously, and having a lot of fun with it, and tying into a lot of the energy of Giffen and DeMatteis and Maguire from the Justice League International days. I'm loving it. Then you got Lobo showing up, and Fire and Lobo have a history. That's all I'm going to say. Pretty dope. Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, issue number 2. This is a continuation of the Superman 78 world, and this is basically what it is. We all love Superman, the movie. We all love Superman 2, the movie, whether it's the Lester cut or the Donner cut. But it's 3 and 4 that we all go, that could have been better. So Superman 78 was more like what Superman 3 could have been and maybe should have been, with a Brainiac story. Part 4 doesn't go into Bizarro like I thought it would, but it ties into the idea that the Cold War was going on at the same time, the Soviet Union. That definitely seems like a step the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman films would have went into, and you throw in Metallo to that. Gavin Guidry does a great job of kind of capturing that like innocence visually of the Christopher Reeve Superman, and at the same time delivering great action. The script is good, and I'm liking it so far. So this is like, what if Superman 4 was good, was kind of like Rocky 4, but instead of Dolph Lundgren, we got Metallo. So there you go. All right, from Mad Cave, we got your sleeper hit of the week, Skeeters, issue number 1. Now, this is by Kelly Williams and Bob France. Bob France is the writer. So is Kevin Cuff. But the art is done by Kelly Williams. Now, I've met Kelly Williams many times, and I love his artwork. I think he is absolutely a fantastic an artist. His coloring is great. His storytelling is great. He's leaning big into horror. This is the perfect book for him. Skeeters is about a lab down in the South that's like doing some kind of experiments with mosquitoes. Something happens, there's an incident, and now giant mosquitoes are unleashed on this small town. It feels very classic B-movie goodness and realness, and I'm all here for it. The artwork is super gnarly. It gets gory when it needs to. It does a very sophisticated type of storytelling. The dialogue is super cool. I just want to tell everybody, buy Skeeters this week. It absolutely slaps. Then we got Stuff of Nightmares, Sleigh Ride, issue number 1. It's a one-shot comic from R.L. Stine, creator of Ghostbumps. The original Stuff of Nightmares series is basically his take on Tales from the Crypt, Creepshow, that kind of a thing. The original miniseries, I wasn't really that into. They did like a Halloween-y type special. This is the Christmas special. It's about a killer Santa. Well, we just watched and talked about Christmas Evil. We're about to watch and talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night. So I'll tell you this straight up. There have been better killer Santa stories out there, but this one wasn't too bad. It was all right. If you want some holiday horror right now in comics that are modern, I would recommend this over the Creepshow Holiday Special, because it is more plugged into the holiday itself, which I like and I appreciate. I love the cover by Francisco Francavilla. The story is just okay, though. It's really not going to change your life. It's not going to make you think it's one of the best horror comics ever. It's not going to make you think it's one of the best Christmas comics ever, or even the best Christmas horror comic ever, because it's definitely not. However, what it does do is win the smell of the week. So Boom Studio, Stuff of Nightmares, Sleigh Ride wins that smell of the week. How would I describe it? Like vanilla, cardboard, and glory. That's what I would say. All right. Hellboy Winter Special, The Yule Cat, issue number 1. It's a one-shot comic by Matt Smith from the world of Mike Mignola. I was a little disconnected from this. It feels like it's tied into Bones of Giants, which I don't know if I actually completed that Hellboy series, but this does not work as just a one-shot, self-contained, holiday-themed special, which that's a missed opportunity. There's tons of people that have never read Hellboy that could if they would deliver a really good holiday-themed one-shot. They've done it in the past. They just didn't do it this year. This one kind of missed the mark for me. It's a little too tied in to what Matt Smith has already done on this title. So it was all right. It was decent. It's good, but it could have been better. Time Traveler Tales, issue number 1 from Dark Horse Comics. This is connected to a web series called Tales from the SMP. No idea what that is, but this was a really good self-contained story. And with no knowledge of what that web series is, it absolutely works for me. It's about this young guy. He's got a pocket watch, sends him through time randomly. And I don't know how the web series is, but I would assume that each episode is kind of like its own one-and-done story. At least that's what this first issue of this comic is. It's good, it's tight, but I wouldn't recommend it necessarily just off the cuff, but I did enjoy it. It's not bad. The art's good. The storytelling's good. Everything about it kind of clicks and it works. And if you're a fan of the web series, what is it? Tales from the SMP, definitely check it out because it will be totally worth it. Then we got Usagi Yojimbo, Fire and Snow, or Ice and Snow, my bad. Ice and Snow, issue number 3 from Stan Sakai. Stan Sakai, doing Usagi Yojimbo for decades, never letting up on it, always exciting. In this one, you got these two evil spirits that both have a mat on for Usagi. They come into conflict with each other, and that's what most of the issue is, but it's excellent storytelling, excellent world building, excellent artwork, amazing lettering. It is just top-notch. If you've never read Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo, what are you waiting for? Treat yourself this Christmas. Pick up that Fantagraphics hardcover box set of 2 giant hardcovers for the entire original run. Get the Dark Horse Saga stuff, and then jump in to the IDW stuff, and then back to Dark Horse. It's great. Speaking of Dark Horse, we also got Subgenre issue number 2. Matt Kent, Wilfredo Torres. I like this story. It's a little bit interesting. It's the story of this one dude whose story keeps bouncing back and forth between genres. The first issue was like a detective story. The second issue is like a fantasy story. I don't think Wilfredo's artwork really lends itself to the fantasy setting. I think this would have been one of those books that would have benefited from a different artist on each book. This art just doesn't work for me on this story, but I do like the format. I do like the meta nature of what Matt Kent is delivering here, so I thought it was pretty solid, but it wasn't quite as compelling to me as issue number 1. Then we got Fire and Ice, issue number 2 from Dynamite. This is based on the Fire and Ice animated movie, co-created by Frank Frazetta. Sarah Frazetta has brought this to Dynamite. They are doing this. Bill Willingham on the writing, and Leo Manco on the artwork. The artwork is great. I love this book. It's good, solid, fantasy, barbarian type stuff. If you like Conan the Barbarian, check out Bloodrik, but also check out Fire and Ice. This is really good stuff. It's strong. I'm not even the biggest sword and sorcery fan, but I love this book. I love the artwork. The only negative I have about it is it was way too long between issue number 1 and 2. Kind of kills a little bit of its momentum because there's some very complex world building going into this book that I feel disconnected to because it's been like months since the first issue. That being said, I've never seen the original Fire and Ice animated movie, so I don't know if this is an adaptation or something that continues that story or whatever. Then we got Darkwing Duck and Negaduck, issue number 3 from Dynamite. Loving this. Jeff Parker is understanding this character, understanding the vibe and flow of what a Darkwing Duck is supposed to be, or Darkwing Duck comic and story, and it's focusing on Negaduck and all of the other villains. He's after the glove of King Midas so he can turn everything to gold, but other villains are after it, as well. I really like this book. I think it's fun. I've been loving pretty much everything that Dynamite has been doing with their Disney licenses. All right. From BlackBox Comics, we got Dead Detective issue number 1. It's a pretty interesting story about an alcoholic detective who is just done with it. He's too old for this shit. He comes across this like cult murder or something like that. He winds up, slight spoilers, but the book's called Dead Detective, so the title's a little bit of a spoiler. He winds up getting got and somehow resurrected, so now he's a dead detective years later trying to piece together some stuff. The story was decent. There was a nugget of an idea that I really liked. The artwork almost won me over. It was a little bit amateurish at times, and at certain times it was overly cluttered. Certain good moments with the background, but other times it just felt like a little bit too much all at once. It didn't really quite vibe for me. Sometimes books are too sparse in their artwork in the background. Sometimes it's too much and it can become a little bit overwhelming. I think just a little bit of tweaking, and this could be a pretty solid book. Then we got Empath issue number 2. I'm really liking the concept of this book. It's about a dude who can absorb emotions from other people, but those emotions will eventually overwhelm him. I like how the story is dealing with that fact, with that part of the story. I like how it's flowing. I like the vibe of it. The artwork is all right. I actually like the art better in Dead Detective, though it does get a bit too overwrought at times. This one just doesn't do enough at certain times and feels just a little bit clunky here and there. But the ideas, the core ideas behind Empath and Dead Detective really work for me. Then we got the Nasty here with issue number 5, John Lees, and the artist is Adam Cahoon. Most of what this issue is the movie that they've been filming. This is about a video store that's about to close down. They're trying to save themselves by hosting this film festival and airing this unseen video nasty that's been lost. But they can't find it. In fact, they actually did find it, but the copy got destroyed. So now they're making their own version of this movie, The House of Creeping Flesh, or whatever the hell it's called, right? And this is the issue where we get most of what the movie actually is. It has parallels and relations to the ongoing themes of the story, but it's interesting, it's good. I wish the art was a little bit more gnarly, a little bit more complex. The art's maybe a little bit too clean for me, but I really like the story, and I like the love of horror and gnarly, sleazy horror that John Lees is sharing. So, to recap, The Nasty is pretty solid this week. Empath, boom, I dropped it. Empath and Dead Detectives, interesting ideas, but the art could be a little bit of a smidge better. Darkwing Duck Negaduck was exactly what it needs to be. Fire and Ice, just too long of a gap between the issues. Otherwise, really great fantasy work. Subgenre is cool, but the art doesn't quite fit the genre they're getting to in this issue. Usagi Yojimbo is great, as always. Time Traveler Tales, I'm not familiar with what the web series is that this is based on, but I really did like it. Hellboy Winter Special, The Yule Cat, did not do it for me. Stuff of Nightmare Sleigh Ride was a decent Killer Santa story, but it did get Smell of the Week. Skeeters, though, your sleeper hit of the week. Definitely pick that one up, especially if you like cheesy B-movies, creature features type stuff. Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, giving us the Superman 4 that we deserved, actually. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue number 4. I'm having so much fun with that. Shazam, number 6, Satisfying Conclusion, Mark Waid, Dan Mora. Poison Ivy is one of DC's best books right now. Batman is solid as well. Titans Beast World, Waller Rising, and Titans Beast World Tour, Metropolis. Not essential to your understanding, but they have elements that are good. Batman Santa Claus, Silent Night, I really was digging on that. Daredevil, it's okay. Fantastic Four, it's less than okay. Amazing Spider-Man, it's less than okay. The Sentry, it is way less than okay. That book blew. Thunderbolts is okay, but it just feels like a little bit of a mistimed cash grab for synergy. King Spawn was better when Sean Lewis was writing it, but it still got some good artwork. Midlife continues to soar. Blood Commandment continues to soar. Petrol Head was pretty decent, but lost a little bit of its momentum. The Sacrificers got better. And then we got Creepshow Holiday Special. It's just kind of alright. Our Bones Dust, cover of the week for the Mignola cover. But very excited to see where we develop in that book. Bloodrik, though, definitely check this book out. If you like Conan, you like that fantasy stuff, you like good, gnarly artwork and great story comic book telling, great comic book storytelling, check that out. But the pick of the week is Transformers, issue number 3. Daniel Warren Johnson is bringing a love of comics, a love of these characters, and a love of himself as well. Anyway, thank you all so much for checking out the video. Thank you so much for awarding this series as best ongoing series. Thank you so much for second year in a row of winning best comic book review. Thank you for the best collaboration with the monthly comic book review. Thank you for the best hair, as controversial as it may have been. Thank you for the best hair, best beard award. And thank you so much for voting us Channel of the Year, y'all. We love you. Y'all are the best. Hope everybody's having a good holiday season. Get some comics this week. Buy some extra copies of Transformers. Share them with your friends and loved ones. That's my advice. Anyway, thank you so much for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom.